Hi, this is Alison Rose, and this is my problem assignment video for Math to 626. Anyways, the course that I'm teaching this fall is geometry, and so I decided to choose a topic from geometry since that's the only prep that I have next school year. Kind of left out that way, I guess. Anyways, so the topic that I chose was the area of sectors. And so the learning objective is that students will apply knowledge of calculating area of sectors in order to divide two sectors with differing central angles and radii into three sectors of equal area. I decided on this problem because I thought it was an interesting problem, not to mention that students typically will struggle with finding the area of a sector. I thought that this investigation would give them a better understanding of how to manipulate an area, how to figure out how to just use the information you're given to figure out what you want. And so this is more of an analytical problem. You're going to see them finding the areas of sectors and then working backwards with a given area, solving for an angle measurement. So my lesson plan would include first showing this YouTube video. And this is a Friends clip. And so I love Friends growing up. And every time I ask my students, they don't know. Only a few people know what Friends is. And so I do like to show this clip and basically a summary of it. And I will link this in with my assignment. But a summary of it is Chandler finds a cheesecake at their front door, and he brings it in and it's addressed to somebody else. Well, he can't seem to part with it, so he ends up eating that cheesecake. And then another one comes, and again, he can't seem to part with it. Rachel is a part of the whole scenario as well, but they try to return it, and they realize that the woman that ordered the cheesecake hadn't picked it up yet, so they bring it back to their place. Anyways, eventually, at the end of this clip, the cheesecake ends up falling on the floor. Well, then Joey shows up and he's willing to eat it up off the floor. But it's just kind of a funny little clip, and the kids really enjoy watching it because, you know, Friends is hilarious, and it leads into this activity. And so we want to know basically how are we going to split the remaining cheesecake into thirds. So what I would do first is students are going to split up into small groups, and then they would try to develop a plan for the problem. And I suppose I'll show you what the problem is here first. I called it Don't Forget to Share. Because Rachel, Joey, and Chandler have found two cheesecakes of different sizes. Each cheesecake has a portion which has already been eaten. What angle should Rachel slice both of the cheesecakes so that all three people can get the same amount? Rachel can only make two slices. So she can make one slice on each cheesecake, or she could make two slices on one cheesecake and divide the cheesecake evenly between all three. So the first step in all of this, I would present the problem to the students. The students would get, 10 to 15 minutes just to try to figure out what is this thing asking us to do, and maybe play with the numbers a little bit, see if they could figure out maybe what's the area of the portions that are left over. That would be the first step in all of this. So once they have had a chance to understand the problem and possibly develop a plan, and if there are any struggling students out there, I might, give them some probing questions, ask them, well, what do you know? What information do we know? What could we figure out with that information? What problem does this kind of look similar to? Things like that. And then I would probably bring the class together to just discuss those ideas and to verbalize what do they know and how do they figure that out. And then where are we going with this problem? And so then they can bounce ideas off of each other, and then they break back into their small groups and in order to carry out their plan. Now, the way that I would solve this problem would be first to calculate the area of the remaining cheesecake, right? So this is how I would expect them to proceed through the problem. So first I would find the area of each of these sectors, the one on the 5-inch radius pie and the one on the 6-inch radius pie. Then they would add those two areas together because we need to know how much area we have total, right? And then we have to divide it between 3 people. Dividing that total area into thirds is going to allow each person to get the right amount, an equal amount. And then they're going to have to figure out where to cut to achieve that area. So now the question becomes, at what angle should we cut one of the slices? Do we give one person this entire segment and then cut this in half, in which case we would only have to cut once? Or do we, cut off a sliver here and a sliver here and one person gets the 2 slivers, right? So how do we figure out what angle this is going to be at? And so they'll end up using that sector area or sector formula again, but this time they're looking for the central angle. They will know the area and they're solving for the central angle. So then they would know where, they'd have to do that twice, and then they would know exactly where to slice the pie, and each person would get the proper amount. And then they should always check their answer by making sure that the area of each sector is equal. And so that is the process that I would expect them to go through in solving this problem. I believe the place in which they would get stuck is after finding the total area. They probably won't really know where to go from there. They may know to, divide everything by 3, but then trying to figure out, well, how am I going to figure out where am I going to cut this? And so I think that would be the place where it would trip up a lot of them. And so I think it's a good practice in using a formula not just in one way, but to solve for any of the variables, using something to its fullest extent. And so they're using the same formula multiple times here in this problem and using it to give everybody the same amount. So I will make sure that link to the video gets into my assignment here, and click on the link because they do a much better job in the clip than I did explaining it. So thank you, and I hope you have a good day.